If you're thinking about buying a home here in Saskatoon right now, well, here's what you need to know. There's actually only 448 homes for sale in this entire city. Not 600, not 500, 448. While you're watching this video, someone probably just bought one of them and it might be down to 447. I'm about to show you the real estate market stats here in Saskatoon for February 2026. And if you don't understand what's happening in this market right now, you're going to be paying for it down the road. You might end up overpaying as a buyer, or you're going to be ending up undervaluing your home as a seller, or you're going to miss a really good investment window that we've seen here in Saskatchewan within the past 30 years. So let's break it down exactly what happened in this past month in Saskatoon and why Saskatoon is now officially Canada's hottest real estate market and what this means for you and your wallet in 2026. The Saskatchewan Real Estate Association just released the real estate market statistics for January 2026 on February 5th, and this is what you need to know. So there was 237 homes that sold in Saskatoon in January. Now that is 6% down from the year previous in January 2025, and some people are going to be looking at it saying, oh, well, the market's cooling off. That is not exactly the case. Now, in January 2025, it was the second strongest January that we've ever seen, and we're comparing that against a peak. Yes, a 6% dip. January 2026, we're still seeing a 7% above the 10-year average, and this is the 31st consecutive month where Saskatoon has actually posted above average sales. So that's 31 months. Not a hot market. That's like a furnace on fire. Now for the benchmark price, we hit $417,800. That's up $14,000 from January last year. So that's a 3.6 increase year over year. If you're looking at single family detached homes specifically, which most of I'm sure you are, the benchmark is closer to $466,000. And that's the average listing price for detached homes. And the average listing price for those detached homes is sitting at $585,000 right now, which is up 2.27 year over year. But here's the real number that should wake you up. We're at an active amount of listings inventory at 635, which sounds like a lot, except 187 of those are already conditionally sold, which means that the actual inventory that is available to you to essentially make an offer on is 448. And the kicker is that this active inventory is actually sitting 50% below what we've seen on a 10-year average. Now, we have half the amount of supply that we're supposed to essentially have, which is ridiculous to think about. When I see people saying that, oh, I'm going to be waiting for a few months and see if prices are going to be dropping, my question I always ask for is, like, what essentially are you waiting for? You think those 448 homes are going to turn into 2,000? Not exactly the case. Supply is the entire story here, and I'm going to explain why this isn't probably going to be changing anytime soon. So let's address the elephant in the room, and that is inventory. Everyone's talking about that. There's just not enough supply, or more specifically, the lack of it. In a normal, balanced market, you're going to be seeing about 4 to 6 months of supply. And that means if no new listings came to the market, it would take 4 to 6 months to sell through the entire inventory at that current pace. That is what's called balance in the real estate world. But as of Saskatoon right now, we're sitting at about 2.1 to 2.9 months of supply. And in June 2025, it was at 1.6 months of supply. That's not balanced. That's called a seller's market. And that's where the sellers have the advantage. Homes are selling like hotcakes. And here's why it's not going to be changing. The new listings in January were down 27% below the historical average. That's 27%. And people aren't really out there putting their houses up for sale. In Saskatchewan, the sales to new listings ratio hit 110% in December, meaning that we're selling more homes than we're listing. And you can't do that forever. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, yeah, what about all the new construction in the suburbs area? Sure, the builders are building like crazy, aren't they? Well, yes and no. Since the housing starts in Saskatoon, they were up significantly by 112% in the first half of 2025. That sounds massive, but the problem is that most of that is multifamily and rental purposed builds. Those single family homes construction is constrained because the building costs are up by roughly 17% over the last 3 years. So the average new single family home in Saskatoon now costs about like roughly $590,000 to build. The CEO of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Association, Chris Garrett, he said that the most pressing challenge remains is inventory, which we all know, and demand is still there. The key question that he mentions is that whether this supply can keep up with the pace. The answer, at least for 2026, is in my opinion, I don't believe that it will be able to. So I want to break down what this means for you. Now, if you're a seller watching this video right now, you probably have never had more leverage in your lifetime as a seller in this market, since homes are selling on average 26 days right now. Not 60, not 90, within under a month, your home is worth more today than it was 6 months ago. And every major forecast says that it's going to be worth more 6 months from now as well. But if you're a buyer, you need to move with speed. Letting me think about it for a week are over. And we've been saying this for months now as real estate agents. You're going to be competing against other buyers in the market with half the inventory that we should have. So it's a must to get pre-approved, to know your numbers, and when you do see something that works, you must not hesitate. If you're an investor, you're probably looking at a market with a little bit of constrained supply, some rising prices, some low entry cost relative to the rest of Canada, and in an economy that's about to do something very interesting and is continually growing, which brings me to my next point. You want to know why Saskatoon is different? Well, let's look at the economy here. Saskatoon led in every major Canadian city in GDP growth in 2024. It wasn't tied for first, it led all the major cities, and we're projected to grow at another 2.4% in 2026, while the national average is about 1.1%. We're growing at more than double the national Saskatchewan. Now, Saskatchewan added 15,200 jobs in 2025. So we actually have the lowest employment rate in any provinces in Canada at 5.2%. The national average is 6.8%. So we actually have the highest employment rate at 63.9%. TD Economics actually said that these are people who forecast this stuff for a living, and they said that they call Saskatchewan's labor market a clear outperformer. That the economists, that's those economists speaking for themselves like, holy crap, this is an unbelievable market. Why? And what is driving this underneath the curtains? The main producer of this is potash. We produce 1/3 of the world's supply. BHP's Jansen mine is 66% complete and starts production in 2026. That's a multiple billion-dollar project. Another huge one is uranium, where we're the world's second largest producer. Saskatchewan hit an all-time high in uranium sales in 2024 at 2.6 billion. Also, some critical minerals. Foreign Mining's copper and zinc mine starts production in mid-2026, which is a billion-dollar investment. Sadvik, big employer, just broke ground on a $51 million mining service facility right here in Saskatoon in February. Now, another big one is infrastructure. We've got new downtown arena approved, the river landing hit full occupancy, building permits in 2024 were up 73.8% from 2023. So this isn't just a boom and bust story, it's very diversified, it's sustained economic growth backed by global demand for resources that Saskatchewan has in abundance. And here's the part that matters for real estate. When people have jobs, they buy homes. And when companies invest billions of dollars, workers move here. And so when workers move here, they need some place to live. We don't understand that. Saskatchewan's population hit an all-time high of 1.27 million people in July 2025. So yes, the federal immigration caps caused a small dip in Q3, but the long-term trajectory is still up. We've seen more people, the same limited housing supply. So just do the math and we can see what's probably going to be happening in the future. Now let's talk about the mortgage rates real quick, because I know some of you are thinking, sitting there and saying, oh, okay, well, rates are up higher than 2020. Well, you're right, but here's what you need to know. Since the Bank of Canada held their interest rate at 2.25% on January 28th. Now, that's the second consecutive hold after cutting 275 basis points from the 2024 peak. That's the best 5-year fixed rate you can get right now, is around the 3.69% to 3.74%. So if you're going through a broker, big banks might be sitting around 4.19%. So if you compare that to the 2023 rates where we hit 5% or even higher, if you're buying a home at the Saskatoon Detached benchmark price, call it around $466,000, with a 10% down payment and a 5-year fixed rate at 3.74%, your monthly payments are going to be around $2,150 That's $350 less than you would have paid at the 2023 peak. And the affordability advantage that nobody's talking about enough is that a home in Saskatoon costs like half of what it's going to cost in Toronto or Vancouver. Even comparing it to Calgary at the $607,000 average, we're way more affordable and our economy is growing, in my opinion, faster than all of them. You can buy a house here in Saskatoon for what a condo costs in Toronto in a city where unemployment is 5.2% and where GDP is growing at 2.4% and where every major forecast says that prices are going to be going up 3 to 5 to 6% this year. And that's not speculation, that's these trusted professionals, the big banks, the economics who are forecasting these growth. They say that we call this the help. In an article, TD Economics said that Saskatoon is called the hottest housing market in the country. And the Canadian Real Estate Association also says that Saskatchewan will be seeing larger price gains than BC, Alberta, Ontario, and Nova Scotia this year in 2026. So if you're waiting for some massive correction, I'm telling you right now, the data does not support that. Let's quickly go through a neighborhood breakdown for those of you who are asking, well, okay, I'm convinced, yes, I should start looking, I need to make a move. A good area that I recommend that's up and coming is Brighton. There's lots of young families, new builds, strong transit access, and this is where a lot of first-time buyers are winning right now. Another great one is Kensington and Aspen Ridge. They're both new developments, Kensington on the far west side and Aspen Ridge far northeast side. Both newer developments, high in demand, good appreciation potential, still lots of development happening around them. Evergreen and Willow Grove, those are still good established suburbs. Investors love these for suburban growth and rental yields. Stonebridge, it's a southern part of the city. Lots of infill redevelopment opportunity happening there. There's some older community getting refreshed and lots of some older dated homes that are getting updated and renovated to more modern styles. Warman, it's a satellite community. There's lots of larger lots, more space, and it's just about 20 minutes north of the city. Price-wise, first-time buyers are targeting around 3 to 400,000. You got those move-up buyers around 450 to 850, and you got retirees looking at condos that are in the 350 to $600,000 range. Now, for investors, the rental vacancy is sitting at a 3.3% vacancy rate, which is higher than the last year's 2%, but still below the 10-year average. Now, there is demand and there is yield and there is some appreciation as well. Now, I am going to be straight with you. There are some risks involved with all of this, as the US tariff is causing some uncertainty, since if the trade policy gets messy, Saskatchewan could take a 5.8% GDP hit in a worst case scenario. That would obviously significantly hurt. There's the risk of some job growth slowdown. TD thinks that job growth might cool in the second half of 2026. If that happens, then buyer demand could soften. We also have some potential immigration caps with the federal policy. They're limiting the population growth, and that could slowly slow down the demand slightly as well. We have some mortgage renewals coming up as well, where about 33% of Canadian mortgage holders renew in 2026, and some of those people are going to be facing payment shock when they might, and also potentially might have to force to sell. So that could add to the supply. The thing is that even if all of those risks do materialize, we're starting from a position of extreme shortage. We'd have to see a massive increase in supply to swing into this market to be a more balanced market. And I don't personally foresee that happening in 2026. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in Saskatoon real estate, the worst thing that you can do is sit back and watch. If you're wanting to take action on this market, reach out to me. My contact information is in the description below, and we'll see you in the next video.